The first thing she said wasn't even a greeting. "This is our home now." She said it loud enough for everyone at the table to hear. But her eyes were locked on me. And in that moment, something inside my chest shifted, quietly, painfully, like a door I didn't even know existed had just been forced open. I remember the exact smell of that Thanksgiving evening. Roasted turkey, cinnamon, and the faint burn of overcooked gravy. The house felt warm, almost too warm, like the heat had been turned up to mask something colder underneath. My son Daniel sat at the head of the table, smiling nervously, his fingers tapping against his glass. He always did that when he was uncomfortable. And beside him, her, Lena, my daughter-in-law. She looked perfect. As always, calm, composed, a soft smile resting on her lips, like it had been practiced in a mirror. To anyone else, she was the ideal partner, polite, attentive, elegant. The kind of woman people complimented when she left the room. But I had started noticing things, small things. The way her smile didn't quite reach her eyes when I spoke. The way she would gently correct Daniel in front of others, always wrapped in a joke. The way she slowly rearranged things in the house. Not by asking, but by deciding. At first, I told myself I was imagining it. After all, I trusted Daniel. And if he loved her, I wanted to love her too. That's how it had always been between us. It was just the two of us for years after his mother passed. I raised him in this very house, the same one we were sitting in now. Every scratch on the wooden floor, every faded corner of wallpaper carried a memory. Late nights helping him with school, burnt dinners we laughed through, quiet mornings where we didn't need words. This wasn't just a house. It was everything we had built together. And when Daniel introduced Lena 2 years ago, I welcomed her without hesitation. I remember that first dinner. She brought a pie apple, slightly underbaked, but she was nervous. And I found that endearing. She laughed easily back then, held Daniel's hand like she was afraid to lose him. I thought, maybe this is good. Maybe he won't feel alone anymore. Over time, she became part of our routine. Sundays turned into shared meals. Holidays felt fuller. The house didn't echo as much. And slowly, so slowly I almost missed it, things began to change. She started suggesting small improvements. A different arrangement for the living room, new curtains, a fresh coat of paint in the hallway. Harmless things, really. And Daniel would always look at me before agreeing, like he needed permission. I always nodded. Because I wanted him to be happy. Because I trusted them. But then came the little comments. "You've held on to this place for so long," she once said casually while washing dishes. "Must be hard keeping up with everything." Or, "Daniel deserves a space that feels like his own, don't you think?" They were subtle, almost thoughtful on the surface, but something about them lingered. That Thanksgiving evening, though, there was nothing subtle about what she said. "This is our home now." The room went quiet for a second. Just a second. Then Daniel let out a soft laugh, like he was trying to smooth over something that hadn't fully landed yet. "Lena's just joking," he said, glancing at me. But she didn't laugh. She just picked up her glass and took a sip, her eyes never leaving mine. And that's when I felt it. Not anger, not yet. Something deeper. Something like being erased. I looked down at my plate, my appetite gone. The turkey tasted dry now, the warmth in the room suddenly suffocating. I wanted to say something, to ask her what she meant. But I didn't, because I didn't want to create a scene. Because I trusted Daniel to say something later. Because part of me still hoped I had misunderstood. The rest of dinner passed in fragments. Conversations floated around me, but none of them settled. Lena laughed with the others, refilled drinks, played the perfect host in a house that had been mine for decades. And Daniel, he avoided my eyes. That hurt more than anything she said. After everyone left, the silence felt heavier than usual. I stood in the kitchen, rinsing plates slowly, listening to the faint hum of voices from the living room. Lena and Daniel were talking, low, careful voices. I couldn't make out the words, but the tone was enough. Tension. I dried my hands and stepped closer, not enough to intrude, just enough to hear. "You should have told him earlier," Lena was saying. "I didn't think tonight was the right time," Daniel replied. A pause. Then her voice again, softer but sharper. "There's never going to be a right time with him." My chest tightened. With him. Not with your father. Not even with your dad. Just him. I stepped back before they could notice me. Something wasn't right. I went to my room and sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the walls that had held my entire life together. For the first time, they didn't feel solid. They felt temporary, like I was the one who didn't belong anymore. A few minutes later, there was a knock on the door. "Daniel, can I come in?" His voice sounded different. "Careful." I nodded even though he couldn't see me. He stepped inside slowly, closing the door behind him. For a moment, he just stood there, hands in his pockets, like he was rehearsing something in his head. "Dad," he started, then stopped. I looked up at him, and suddenly I didn't see the boy I raised. I saw someone trying to choose his words very, very carefully. "What is it?" I asked. He exhaled, running a hand through his hair. "It's about the house." Of course it was. I felt a quiet weight settle in my chest. "This house?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. He nodded. "Yeah." There was another pause, longer this time, and then he said something that made everything from that evening, the comment at dinner, the conversation in the living room, the way Lena looked at me, fall in place all at once. "We've been thinking, maybe it's time to make some changes." Changes. Such a simple word. But the way he said it didn't feel small. It felt like the beginning of something I wasn't ready to face. I leaned back slightly, studying his expression. "Changes like what?" I asked quietly. He hesitated, and for the first time in years, Daniel didn't have an answer ready. Behind him, I could see Lena standing in the hallway, watching, waiting, and that's when I realized, whatever they were about to say next, it wasn't going to be a suggestion. It was going to be a decision. The word decision hung in the air long, after I thought it. And Daniel, he felt it too. He glanced back toward the hallway, where Lena stood half in shadow, her arms folded, not defensive, not uncertain, just patient, like someone waiting for a process to complete. That's when I understood something I hadn't wanted to admit before. This wasn't new. This conversation, this moment, had already happened. Just not with me in the room. "What kind of changes?" I asked again, more firmly this time. Daniel swallowed. "We've been talking about the future, about space, about what makes sense for all of us." "All of us," I repeated slowly. Lena stepped forward then, her footsteps quiet but deliberate against the wooden floor. She didn't ask for permission to enter. She didn't need to. "We're not trying to upset you," she said, her voice calm, measured. "But this house, it's too much for one person to maintain. And for us to grow, we need stability." I let out a soft breath, something between a laugh and disbelief. "Stability," I said. "In the house I've lived in for 30 years. Daniel shifted uncomfortably. "Dad, it's not like that." "Then what is it like?" I asked, my voice still steady, though something inside me was beginning to tighten. He looked at Lena again. That small glance told me everything. She gave him a slight nod, and that was all it took. "We think it would be better," Daniel said slowly, "if we reorganize things." "Reorganized," I echoed. "Maybe you could take the downstairs room," he continued quickly, like the words were trying to escape him before he lost the nerve. "It's smaller, easier to manage, and Lena and I could take the main floor. We've been planning to—" I raised my hand, and he stopped mid-sentence. The room fell silent again. Not the comfortable silence we used to share, but something brittle, something unfamiliar. I looked at him carefully. "At dinner," I said, "she said, 'This is our home now.'" Neither of them spoke. "That didn't sound like reorganization," I added. Lena didn't flinch. Instead, she stepped closer, her expression softening just enough to appear understanding. "You're hearing it as something it's not," she said gently. "No one is taking anything away from you. We're just trying to create a structure that works long-term." "By moving me out of my own space?" I asked. "It's still your home," Daniel said quickly. "That's not—" But even as he said it, his voice lacked weight, like he didn't fully believe it himself. I stood up slowly, my knees stiff, not from age, but from the weight of what I was beginning to understand. "When did this start?" I asked. Daniel frowned. "What do you mean?" "When did you decide this?" I clarified. "Because it clearly wasn't tonight." He hesitated, and that hesitation answered the question. "A few weeks ago," he admitted quietly. "A few weeks?" They had been sitting across from me at breakfast, laughing at the television, asking if I needed anything from the store, all while this plan was already in motion. And you didn't think to mention it? I asked. I didn't know how, he said almost defensively. You get attached to things. I let out a slow breath. Things, I repeated. This house, our memories, his childhood, reduced to things. Lena stepped in again, her tone still calm, still controlled. We understand this is emotional, she said, but sometimes holding on to the past can prevent growth. I looked at her then. Really looked at her. And for the first time, I saw it clearly. Not cruelty, not even hostility, just certainty. The kind of certainty that doesn't leave room for anyone else's perspective. And whose growth are we talking about? I asked quietly. She didn't answer directly. Instead, she said, Daniel deserves to build his own life. I nodded slowly. And he can't do that with me here? That's not what I said. But it's what you meant. Daniel stepped forward. Dad, please, this isn't about pushing you out. It's about making space for the future. I held his gaze. The future, I said. Or your future. He didn't respond. Because deep down, he knew. Another silence settled over us. But this one felt different. Clearer, like the truth had finally stopped hiding. I walked past them, out into the hallway, and into the living room. The same room where Daniel took his first steps, where we celebrated birthdays, where we sat on the floor eating takeout when money was tight but laughter came easy. It all looked the same. But it didn't feel the same. Behind me, I could hear their footsteps following. Careful, measured, like they were approaching something fragile. Dad, Daniel said again, softer this time, we're not asking you to leave. I turned to face him, and for a moment I almost believed him. But then I remembered the conversation I overheard. There's never going to be a right time with him. Not if, just when. I slipped my hand into my pocket. My fingers brushed against something small, cold, solid. I had been carrying it with me all evening without really thinking about it. A folded piece of paper. I pulled it out slowly. Daniel frowned. What's that? I looked down at it for a moment before answering. Something I wasn't planning to use tonight, I said. Lena's eyes narrowed slightly, not in confusion, but in calculation. I unfolded the paper carefully, smoothing it out between my fingers. The sound of it seemed louder than it should have been. I've been noticing things too, I continued. Conversations that stop when I walk in. Decisions being made without me. Words that sound polite, but don't feel that way. Daniel shifted again. Dad, you're reading too much into... I raised my hand once more, and this time he fell completely silent. I trusted you, I said, my voice steady but heavier now. Both of you. My eyes moved from him to Lena, and I gave you time to come to me honestly. The room felt still. Even the air seemed to pause. But since that didn't happen, I added quietly, glancing down at the paper in my hands, I decided to prepare for the possibility that it wouldn't. Daniel's expression changed. Confusion, then concern. Prepare for what? He asked. I looked back up at him, and for the first time that night, I didn't feel uncertain. I guess, I said slowly, we're about to find out. Lena took a small step forward, her calm finally cracking, just slightly. What is that? She asked. I didn't answer immediately. Instead, I folded the paper once more, holding it firmly in my hand. The weight of it felt different now. Not heavy, not light, just final. I met Daniel's eyes one last time. And then I started to speak.